Hello and welcome to some airport hotel somewhere in Someville. Mark Donaldson alongside Shaka Hislop. Just as we all expected, Shaka, Manchester City lose at Brighton, and West Ham go to Nottingham Forest and win 3-0. It's been that type of weekend. Let's start with Brighton against Manchester City. You could be forgiven for thinking this was last season because City scored first. Brighton came back, won by 2-1 with a winner from a substitute. Right, Manchester City, they opened the scoring. Haaland should have scored more, and they should have been out of sight. So how big a concern is this on the back of the defeat against Spurs?
Very is the short answer to that question, Mark. And okay, while maybe you want to accept or excuse the loss against Spurs, against Brighton, you thought this was City getting back to their best. And I guess the big question around Manchester City was, would this be the City of last season or the City of 2 seasons ago? And while, okay, yes, as I said, you may want to quickly move on from the loss against Spurs. City started this one really well. Rodri back in the starting lineup, which, so many of their problems was put down to the absence of Rodri for all of last season, given his injury. Back in the starting lineup, you thought, okay, this is City getting back to who we know them to be. And early signs were that that's exactly who it was. Erling Haaland should have had a few more before he eventually opened the scoring himself with a very well taken goal. And kind of given how the first 45 went, you thought, well, this is City are gonna romp away with this. And in so many ways, Brighton just looked like a deer caught in headlights, which is surprising given who Brighton have continually shown themselves to be. But the second half was a different story. And the substitutions on both sides kind of defined the second half, and in the end, defined the result of this game.
Manchester United have got so much attacking power, but defensively, they've got a lot of really good individual players. He doesn't seem to find the 4 or the 3 or the 5 or whatever. I mean, today Kusanov came in, played alongside Stones. Like Nuri was playing there. He dropped Rico Lewis or gave him a rest. As a goalkeeper, how important is it to have a consistent back 4 in front of you so that you have this understanding? Because teams usually get chances against Manchester City.
Yes, and they have for all of last season, and that was a big conversation point. They had a lot of issues defensively last season. We see how that went. You were thinking that with some of the players returning to full fitness, John Stones comes first to mind, that it would be City kind of getting back to their best, but again having to make changes. Also, and I know the goalkeeper position has been a talking point, especially since last week. But Trafford bore no responsibility for the loss today. As a matter of fact, I thought he kept himself wonderfully well. I can think of a couple of outstanding saves that he did make. And I know this is, which I'm sure a lot of us will be discussing over the next week. The expected arrival of Donnarumma, but Trafford did well. But a young goalkeeper, as inexperienced as he is, as talented as he may be, does not want to be playing in front of a rotating back 4, let's call it. He is looking for as much stability as anything, just so he can know exactly what his role is, get that initial understanding. But given his own experience, given the changing back 4, I sympathize. So it's not just for Trafford; it's for Manchester City. You want that stable back 4. You want a stable lineup. You can afford small changes every now and then, but wholesale changes, regardless of who you are, always seem to hurt.
Let's talk a little bit more about the substitutions in the second half that you mentioned, because some of them were a little bit funky. But for Brighton to bring on players that not many Brighton fans would know when they sign for the football club, yet they end up heroes, and they are an integral part of the way that football club goes. And I know we're going to talk a lot about Manchester City, but let's give Tony Bloom and Brighton some credit, because the Jamestown analytics that he also uses up in Scotland with Hearts. There's today's mention. That's a seamless transition. But you're signing players that you've not heard of before. The fans are like, who's this guy? And then he goes and scores the winner off the bench against Manchester City. What do you think about the way that Tony Bloom has gone about his business at Brighton?
You can only give him an immense amount of credit. Listen, Brighton, another of those teams that seem to sell players in the summer, and yeah, regardless, are competitive. You always expect that at some point it's going to catch up with Brighton, but not right now, not
Nope.
just yet. And I think that's credit to the job that they do, credit to the recruiting of players, recruiting of managers, everything that comes in running with a football club. Brighton just seems to do wonderfully well, and in a way that is sustainable, is profitable, and sees them able to beat the likes of Manchester City. You don't take any result for granted with Brighton and on the park, and that's simply a credit to them and how that club is being run.
Is the fear factor gone from Manchester City?
I guess on today's result, you have to lean that way. I think you take Manchester City lightly at your peril. I think what teams recognize is you'll get chances. You get chances against Manchester City, you have to take them. At the same time, they have a significant threat up at the other end. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to be resolute. And to that end, I thought, and I spoke about the substitutions and how for both teams and how they impacted the results. I just felt that Brighton substitutions, they seem to go up a gear. They seem to play a whole lot quicker, more willing to get the ball forward quickly and run at City defensively and not allow them to settle down. At times, and kind of give them Pep Guardiola's style, which, let's be honest, you can't criticize Pep Guardiola given his record. But at times, their passing through midfield allows you to get in, sit, get a shape, and deal with what's at hand. Now, dealing with what's at hand is hard enough as it is. But if you're disciplined enough, you give yourself a chance. And then by not allowing them to set in defensively up at the other end, again, you give yourself a chance. And credit to Brighton, they took theirs.
Here's the bench for Manchester City. And when he goes to his bench, Jeremy Doku is the only attacking player that he brings on, because he brings on Nico O'Reilly, who can play in a more advanced role. He also brings on Rico Lewis, and he brings on Ruben Diaz. So the players that didn't come on were Nathan Ake, Nico Gonzalez, Ilkay Gundogan, Manuel Akanji, and the goalkeeper, Ederson. You've got to know that there's a chance. You've already lost there 12 months ago, or nearly 12 months ago. You've got to know there's a chance you might be behind and need some firepower. So why has he left himself with pretty much a kind of defensive-minded bench to choose from when things aren't going right?
Yeah, that's a question I simply can't answer. And given the money that Manchester City has spent, it does seem a little bit alarming. And similarly, to that point, not just looking at the bench and who Pep Guardiola could or could not turn to, I was surprised to see Marmoush come off. And while listen, I get it. You are looking for changes, but I find Marmoush at his best so direct. And you saw that. You saw that in the Bundesliga. You saw that in the second half of last season, that he will run at defenses. If invited to, if given space in behind, he will stretch you. And kind of given how the game started to go, and again, kind of given the up tempo of Brighton, I would have liked to see Marmoush stay on the park and give that additional option going forward. So to your question, as I said, I can't answer it, and even more so, there are changes that Pep Guardiola made that I'm not sure was the right thing to do at that time.
James Milner scored a penalty. The hands were up. It was given. It was confirmed by VAR. It was a penalty. James Milner was playing when you were playing, or certainly that's how it feels like. His longevity is incredible, and it's all to do with how he keeps himself fit. He's still got it. He's still a talented individual. It was a lovely tribute to Jota as well after that. But what is it about James Milner that means he's still playing and still doing the business now?
Incredible professional. And oftentimes, you don't see players who burst onto the scene at such an early age as James Milner did at Leeds, was it? And have the kind of sustainability that he has had. 39 years old now. I say tongue
Mm.
in cheek, he's almost older than me at this point. Um, but it kind of speaks to quite quite clearly how he's taken care of himself over the course of a career. It does take a little bit of luck in terms of avoiding major injuries, which sometimes you have no say in. But it also talks to a technical ability of a very talented player. That even at this age, he's still contributing as significantly as he has. To step up and take the penalty, okay, it's only 12 yards out, and we all know how good Jason Milner is from the penalty spot. But again, he's 39 years old, up against one of the Premier League giants, and he just makes things look so comfortable. Regardless of who you support, I think you have a soft spot for James Milner because of what is represented, how long he's represented that kind of epitome of professionalism over the years. And it was great to see him get himself on the score sheet. And again, as you mentioned, touching tribute to Jota.
Brian Gruda got the winning goal, just a 21-year-old German from Mainz. Another player that you kind of look at and you go, okay, then. But the message from Brighton is kind of trust the process. What's the message from Manchester City with the transfer window closing on Monday? What do they need, and do you think they're going to spend, perhaps in addition to Donnarumma?
Um, I'm not sure that they will spend in a huge addition to Donnarumma. That whether you stick with Trafford or not. To your point, I think they go ahead and get Donnarumma. I would like to see a team with a little bit more pace through midfield that can play a little bit quicker on the transition. We know how good Pep's teams are in possession, in comfortable possession, and in dragging teams around. But I'd like to see them have another option where they can be a little bit more direct, where they can be a whole lot quicker in transition and stretch your opponent and give them a whole lot more to think about. Whether that comes in the form of attacking support or just better running and better legs in midfield, we'll see. But City have spent a lot to be here, and
Mm-hmm.
right now the signs so far this season aren't really that great.
Why are they going after Donnarumma if Luis Enrique is getting rid of him because he's not the
Excuse me.
best, bless you, with his
Thank you.
footwork at Paris
Yeah, yeah.
Saint-Germain?
I don't know. I've said this from the get go. Donnarumma is regarded as one of the best goalkeepers in the world, and rightly so. But of those top goalkeepers, of most top goalkeepers, he's very low down in terms of ability to play with
Yeah.
his feet. And Pep demands that of his goalkeepers. Um, Joe Hart um, immediately springs to mind. Who Pep left out when he was England's number one. Why unless Pep is maybe about to change how City plays, which is a possibility. I don't see how not Guardiola. I don't see how Donnarumma is a fit into Pep's style of old. So maybe Pep has yet another trick up his sleeve that we're just not anticipating.
Okay, last question. Manchester City now find themselves behind Leeds and just ahead of Burnley on goal difference in 13th in the table. It was a start against Wolves, and people are thinking, okay, this is 2 years ago. Who
Yeah.
can catch Manchester City? Who can stop them in this form? What are we thinking now? The Shaka predictions change from week to week. Two-horse race without Manchester City?
Right now, the signs are exactly that. Yes, between Arsenal and Liverpool, I I still think City will be at the very least in the top four. I'm not sure that they could be much worse than last season, and they finished third last season. I think we'll be having a similar conversation about City come May in that top three, top four race. But in terms of title contenders, and yes, it is very, very early days yet. Uh, I think the top two are about to meet today.
And you can change that when you and I reconvene after Liverpool against Arsenal, because you're allowed to do that. And then at the end of the season, you say, "I told you so,"
Yeah,
because you've made so
that's
many
what I do.
predictions. That's the way to do it. We
I'm
will see
sticking
you
with this
again.
one. I'm sticking with this.
Do you know what? I was about
Not
to
this
say.
one.
I was about to say goodbye, but I can't say goodbye before you get one word in on West Ham winning at
Right?
Nottingham Forest.
I
What's
didn't.
happening?
I didn't see that coming. I honestly thought that it'd be another kind of inept performance, and there'd be a whole lot of conversation around
Mm.
Graham Potter during this international break. But what a result! That has changed so much about the conversation over the next couple of weeks. So at least it sends me into the international break feeling a whole lot better.
Why do I think that Jose Mourinho and Nottingham Forest are going to be linked with each other over the next
Oh
week?
boy.
Just saying. We'll be back after Liverpool against Arsenal live on the full-time whistle for Shaka. I'm Mark. We'll see you again soon. Bye for now.